Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Racing Lanes podcast. I am your host, Rico. I will be joined here shortly by my co-host, Mr. Chuck Snow. This week, we have special guests joining us this week, Mr. Andrew Stacey. We're going to be talking a good bit about safety and a couple of different various topics. But if you guys would, before we get started with that, do me a huge favor. If you would, please like, share, and subscribe to the show. It doesn't cost you a thing. Just hit that little subscribe button. It helps us out tremendously. And also, if you hit the red bell icon that is somewhere down there, I think it is. If you would do that for us, we really appreciate it. That just lets you get notified whenever we do post new material, new content, and you'll be one of the first people to get a notification. So if you could do that for us, we greatly appreciate it. And with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and bring in my co-host, Mr. Chuck Snow. Good evening, Chuck. How are you?
I'm doing well, Rico. The sound's a little off. I'm Andrew. Welcome to the show. Are you hearing better sound now? Sometimes, as soon as Rico opens, it's a little rough, but then it gets great.
Yeah, the intro was a little hard, like it was very robotic, but you're good. I can.
Now you're good, Rico. So, you know what?
Okay.
Welcome to the Racing Lanes podcast, everybody.
we kind of always seem to hit that little glitch at the beginning of the show. I don't know why that happens.
I don't know why.
You know what? It can't be something live without having a technical difficulty. It's just no fun otherwise.
Well, gentlemen,
ladies and gentlemen,
it's been a little while since we got you on, Andrew. What's been new going on in your end of the spectrum?
Nothing overly new. It's just been another. I mean, it's been a while. I'm still traveling around Canada and sometimes into the United States doing what I do for an insurance company. So, senior risk specialist looking after commercial fleets. It's been an interesting year, and I think a lot of that has to do somewhat politically. And I mean, it's just economy driven, right? On both ends. So it's brought up some different, it's brought up a lot of different conversations, and I think we're advancing. It's a different world. It's advancing technology wise, AI driven, a lot of those conversations coming into place. So it's extremely different from where Chuck and I started, and I'm sure you as well, 40 years ago. Never thought I'd see what I'm seeing today, but it's not flying cars, but who knows, we're getting there.
Yeah, you know what? When you think back, when I got into this, there was no technology whatsoever. I mean, like
we were the technology.
Yeah, fistful of dimes, because it was only 10 cents to make a phone call back in '74. And then it went up to a quarter, and that was how you got your dispatch out on the road. You had a fistful of quarters and dimes because you had to make long distance calls unless you had the 800 number, or we could call collect sometimes if there wasn't a problem.
Then the advent of calling cards and
yes, they made life a lot easier. But
the telephone at every booth in the truck stop when you go to the restaurant.
That's right. Yeah, that was actually the telephones at the booth was something that came out in the late 70s. They didn't have them before that. You'd have to go into this horrible room where all the phones were and the TV. Yeah. The first load boards were there.
Yeah.
And that was the first. That's how DAT got their start way back.
Dial a truck, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Do I age myself saying that I can still remember, and I don't know why I can vividly remember this. You would think it's a bad thing, but we didn't have GPS, so I would go into the booth, and my dispatcher would send me. I just remember once, for some unknown reason, I thought he hated me, like 19 pickups. And I'm dialing around, and I'd get to the truck stop, and I'd pick the ones that were there, look at the map. And I had a box of maps that would sit beside me in the passenger side, and I'd pull out that map and I'd plot it out. But to this day, even when I'm using GPS, because of being trained to map things and phone and get guidance in, It's almost like a cartoon image that you create in your head when you're following the map image and stuff.
Yeah.
And the minute the GPS starts going just a little left of what I seen, I have to stop and look and reroute, and I can't let the GPS override what's in my mind of what I seen. And it's hard to let the GPS still to this day, take control.
Oh yeah.
Well, speaking of GPS, and since you're a safety guy, Andrew, I gotta throw this question at you. I know that you probably have seen all the different things people riding down the road, and have you come across the driver with the 15 GPSs and everything across?
Have I? Yeah, I've actually seen it, and it boggles my mind. And this was in the States actually, and I want to say it was a rideshare type thing, where if the guy was working for this company today, he was running something over here, even though all the apps can fit on one phone, but to monitor, I guess, because the stickers on the back of the car. But I was blown away at how many things they had in the front, and that they're just driving around. It's like enforcement wasn't stepping in to do anything with it. But I mean, beyond distracting.
Yeah, it blows my mind every time I see. I see it probably. I'm on the road, so I probably see it at least once or twice a day when I'm on the road. The guys going there, and I'm talking about big trucks. I'm not talking about four. I'm talking about big trucks with the guys with 2, 3, 4 different GPSs mounted up along the top of the, and then you look across, and they'll even have a laptop strapped to the dash showing a movie.
Well, I was going to say this.
I got to interrupt here, and I want to say something. I had never seen that before. I'd heard of it, never seen it until 3 years ago. My wife and I were in Italy. We were on a bus because we were on this cooking tour, and we were taking short jaunts. And every time I looked out the right window, I would always look inside trucks. Now, the old guys, the older men, were sitting there. They all had a cigarette in their mouth, and they just sat there 90 kilometers an hour, 55 for our American friends, going down the road. The young guys, 99% of them had a movie going on. And I was shocked. And then I got back here, and I'm hearing from friends of mine who are saying, "Are you kidding? Everybody's watching movies now. I see it all the time." I honestly believe, and you tell me if I'm right or wrong, I think if you see somebody watching a movie, they should be reported because they're about to kill you or somebody else. What's your opinion on this?
I'm going to agree with you 100%. I'm sorry. There's enough things going on out on the road as it is. We were discussing red light cameras here a while back. There was a few of us. And I said, for as much as I've driven, and for the places that I go, I do use specific apps, right, for GPS. And one is so that I know when I'm going to see a red light camera, or it will tell me that a car is off on the shoulder of the road, because the roads themselves have become so busy with signs.
Yes.
Right. That, it's not that I'm aging, although I'm sure that probably has something to do with it. But, you're not going to see every single sign. So when an officer comes up to you and says, "Did you not see the sign?" It's kind of like, which one? The 55 of them that were back there that I didn't see. You can't decipher everything when you're trying to, the best you can. Right. I mean, you're grabbing what you can. But everything has become so busy, but it's also become so fast, right? So even though our speed limits are what they are, people are still driving faster. And that's just my own internal opinion from what I see when I'm out in certain areas. I do go to some cities where I think that everybody's driving really slow, and you can notice it, right away. Yet you go out to some cities and it's like, it's on, it's a go. And, I try to make sure that I grab as much as I possibly can just by having alerts sent to the car, but it's I can't keep up with what's going on out in the city streets, let alone trying to watch a movie and put that beside. So I'm sorry, technology doesn't need to be in the cab that way. It needs to be in the back.
It definitely you can see it all the time. I don't know that I came across a video on it may have been Instagram with a driver, female driver. She was driving um, and was going through a construction zone area, and she they had the in facing camera, so it was right there. You could see it, and we're somehow or another it got posted to the internet. But she was basically texting and took her eyes off the road for a second, going through a construction. I mean, and went through and just plowed through all type of concrete, all type of stuff. But she never let go of that phone the whole time.
Actually, I'm going to be speaking in Calgary here in 2 weeks, and it's for the risk management conference that's happening downtown Calgary that goes on annually. And I'm doing it on telematics and how to leverage telematics and cameras with your fleet. And it's amazing when you get right into it. And I mean, I've only got a half an hour to speak, and of course that's with questions, so maybe 20 minutes. But over the time that I've taken to learn, because we have a telematics program, like at our place, and learning about the systems and what is in even your personal vehicle, the information that can be pulled and used if needed is amazing. The fact that they can look at your phone, and if I send you a text message right now to either one of you, and your phone is just lying on the desk, it's going to know that it woke up from me sending you that message and I woke up your phone, or an email.
Right.
But if you tap on that or open it, they know that you've done that, right? So people that are using Apple CarPlay, people that are using these different apps and everything else like that, they know forensically, if they want to dig in far enough, whether you are using the system or whether the system is just, basically, if I tell, the phone to do something using verbal commands, they would know that in comparison to me touching the screen, and all this stuff, like you were saying, Chuck, we didn't have this technology when we started, and it's rapidly advancing. And you've got AI technology in the cameras that can provide coaching alerts, tell you when you're getting too close. My wife and I went and bought a brand new Jeep, and it's got all the technological fancy gadgets in it and everything. And every time I'm in my parkade, there's just one vehicle that when I'm going to go up to make the turn to go up the ramp to get out of the parkade, it always tells me I'm going to hit that vehicle. Right. And it's just because I'm approaching it in a certain way that the vehicle thinks that I'm just not going to brake in time or make the turn. And it sends off the alarms and the bells and whistles. Right. So technology is, I think, one of the more leading conversations that I seem to have nowadays.
So would you think that all of that stuff, like say, all of the different things that we have in the cab with the GPSs and everything else, is it just sensory overload? Is it too much? From a standpoint of, I know it has benefits to it, but is it just sensory overload and we just overstimulated while we're going down the road?
Well, I think we're overstimulated anyways, but I mean, if you're using it to if you use it to its capabilities and you let it do what it's supposed to, in other words, I like using the Waze app, right? It gives you a bunch of information on what's going on city streets and stuff like that. And it seems to be, tapped into, say, some of the towing companies I know have posted online that they post on Waze when they're going out to a site to let you know that a car's off on the shoulder of the road.
Right.
And my wife and I were actually talking about it. It's good. But it likes to send alerts to you on the screen that wants you to tap to get rid of. And I found a way to get around that so that you don't have to do that, because I was like, no, I'm not tapping them when I'm driving. Like, I'm not going to do that. Right. Mm-hmm. So I think if you use technology the way that it's there at its benefit point, you type in the address before you go, you trip plan what you're doing. Like, even myself, if I'm in Toronto, Calgary, Halifax, or next week I'll be in Newfoundland, I've already mapped everything out. I know my trip, right? And I know what highways I'm going to be taking. And I don't suspect that I'm going to have any GPS issues when that happens. So there's no need for me to go and overload. All I have to do is just listen, right? And the rest of it can be spent looking out and catching the beautiful scenery of Newfoundland while I'm there. So I think if you use it to its benefit, to its potential, it's fine. But I don't see the reason why you need to have, a 13-inch display in your vehicle and then have your car phone mounted, and then another GPS model sitting there. I somebody would have to explain that to me. I don't understand the reasoning behind that.
You know what? No, the only thing I'm thinking of, I think a lot of times with different phones in vehicles, is they may be on some load boards, and they're looking for a backhaul. So they've got it on 2 or 3 different sites. They've got it on DAT, and they've got it on a couple of other ones. So they're not paying attention to their driving still, because they're getting pinged that there's a load back from Chicago or wherever they're going to be unloading. So it's still a distraction.
Yeah, it'd be pretty hard to explain, or a pretty bad feeling, knowing that somebody had died because you're looking for a load.
Well, that's what happens.
Yeah.
I don't think most of us wake up in the morning and we decide, well, today's the day I'm going to have a wreck. Like an old guy said to me recently at a truck show, he said, it's never the things you think are going to get you that are going to get you, and it's just that's so true. Doing something that you may have done 100 times, like that guy that worked for us when we were working together, Andrew, that fell off a flatbed. Do you remember him?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I've been doing it for decades, and he fell off one day, and that was it. Guy never worked again. And this happens. It's real life. So I think we have to take every single precaution. We have to wear safety boots when we go into a plant, because you don't know. And if you're on a construction site, for God's sake, wear an orange vest and a hard hat, things like that, because stuff happens. You need all the protection you can get. Speaking of protection, Andrew, what is your insurance company? What are they doing about cameras? Are they pushing the whole camera technology at this point?
Well, it's not that it's a push. It's it's just a good mitigation tool, right? So it's always going to help us out. And I mean, in my side of the world, I'm not a regulatory person. I can't go in and mandate that somebody do something. I can always give a highly stouted recommendation. But again, like when I walk into a company that has we'll just say 100 trucks or something of that nature, I have to be conscious of the fact that that's a big investment, right? But that being said, when you look at the collisions that have happened here in Canada, one being the one that happened in Carberry, Manitoba, where several seniors passed in that crash.
Yeah.
Just removing that part of it out of there, because once that happens, there's still the real life part. The trucking companies still, any trucking company that gets involved in those kind of crashes, or any carrier, still has to move forward. Things still have to go forward and stuff like that. And of course, claims still have to be dealt with, and litigation still has to be, dealt with. And the more information that we have, it's the easier it is for us to either defend the claim, or to, we know we're at fault. Let's settle this claim and make it right, and instead of possibly fighting something that, may not have been right. So the more information we have, it is better. And 90% of the time, and this is just going off of what I read, obviously, throughout different articles, but it seems that around 80 to 90% of the time, drivers are found that they're not always completely at fault for what they do, right? But then I too have seen, and it depends on where you're at with law, what state you're running in, what province you're running in. I have seen where it doesn't personally make sense to me, where somebody is, say being sued for $7 or $10 million for something that they couldn't have avoided, right? And so it is. I can see the frustration with many folks and carriers, but it's still out of the few that happen like that. It's going to work in your benefit to have that camera in the vehicle. So
Yeah.
we do heavily promote it.
But do you see a time when the insurance companies are just going to say, you better have it or we're not insuring you?
I don't know that you're going to see that. I mean, because I don't know where, like, the insurance bureau is going to go, or regulators or anything else like that. It's hard to say. I mean, I don't hear those kinds of conversations. But if you look at where technology has gone, like look at a new car today, and whether it be a hybrid or just your basic new car, they all seem to come out with cameras so that you can get adaptive cruise control, or it's a feature that's made nice to you. Well, that car's already got a camera in it, right? So the cameras are coming out through manufacturing, through safety devices, or through comfort, like an adaptive cruise control or something like that, and that's already there. So is it going to be manufacturer based or insurance based? I think you're starting to see insurance companies, like, in general, you hear it all through all the ads, like, they come up like through the stateside insurance companies, or even the Canadian ones, where they have apps, and the app will give you based on your driving, if you're using the app, and which is a telematics of its own, right? So I mean, that's already there. It's if you're a good driver or you're a good company and you want to share, which I think is not a bad idea. And this is coming from a guy that sat on the other side of the table for as many years as I did, away from the insurance companies. I don't think it's a bad idea to share that data with the insurance company, because it's gonna help you out in the long run. If you are good, it's going to be a good thing for you. If you're running something that's not so good, well, you probably shouldn't be running, or you need to be paying for it anyways, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah. If you're not if in this day and age, if you're not a good, clean operator, your days are numbered. You may as well go home now, because it's not a matter of if, it's when something happens, and you know what, the insurance company's going to say, you're out of here. We're not insuring you, and nobody's going to want to cover you.
But as we all know, they're still out there. I mean, we see them on social media all the time, and there's characters that shouldn't be operating, and there's drivers that shouldn't be out there. But that being said, it's I like the way things are going up here. In some instances, that there's a lot of push on the new, like, there's a big push for new driver training and new standardization, trying to bring in a red seal type of approach into it, to try to get drivers a lot. When I drove, it used to be a prideful thing. Now, when I say pride, we would look after each other. It was a brotherhood.
Yes.
And we would, if it Chuck, we may have, and I've done this with guys, we may have never met before in our lives, but if you're on the side of the road, we're instantly friends because we're helping each other. Yeah. And we didn't know politics. We didn't know backgrounds. We didn't know, where we came from or what we did. It didn't matter. We were friends. We were part of a brotherhood. But we would help each other out like that. And that has long been lost.
Yeah, that is definitely long gone. It used to be a time, especially when you were same companies. You would always, if you broke down on the side of the road, you could just about bet your bottom dollar that if somebody that worked with the same company that you were working for was coming by, they seen that marking on the trailer or whatever, 9 times out of 10, somebody's going to stop and check on you just to make sure that you're all right.
Oh, if you drove past them, you didn't have a job.
Now.
Well, you know what? And we see that all the time in Ontario. And one of the reasons, and I've looked into it, and one of the reasons is because a lot of these guys they're hauling auto parts, they're on schedule. And they've got 10 hours to make it from Chicago to Toronto. That's all they've got. They don't have the time. And they don't want to be responsible for closing down that plant, because
But in the other aspect of that too, Chuck, then the other guy that's broken down still has the telematics and he has the inward, like the in-cab communication,
yeah,
and they already know that he's there, right? So today is different that way.
they're sending
Like,
a mechanic because you know what? Years ago, you could help a guy outside the road with with a couple of wrenches and a set of vice grips. Today, hell, you got to tow the damn truck into the shop and put it under a computer to find out why it died.
I just want to see a lot more training going into the new guys, like when they're coming out of school, or going into the driving schools. And feasibly, I mean, um, I got a friend that's a pilot, and we were just sitting there chatting, and he just moved companies. Now, this guy's a veteran pilot. He's been a bush pilot. He's been flying up in the Arctic. He's been doing, you name it. And so he's with a commercial carrier now, and he just switched over to this other thing. And it's like an instantaneous 3 weeks of simulation, right? It doesn't matter that he knows how to fly the plane. He doesn't know what to do under that particular company's policies and procedures and emergency call outs, how the staff in the back of the airplane is trained to deal with any emergencies that are coming and everything. And like I said, he's got so many hours sitting inside a cockpit, but that does, and he's a captain. He's not the co-pilot,
Right.
but it does not matter. He is going through that same simulated training. And, he looked at me when we were talking the other night. He goes, I just spent 8 hours of learning to taxi through the Calgary airport. We didn't even fly in the simulator. He goes, we never even touched off the nose. We learned all the taxiing rules, all the taxiing. And it's like, we don't do that, right? Well, I don't know where the happy medium is with this, to be honest, but we don't do that. We just allow people to come in, and this frustrated me when I was doing an instructor work here in Alberta, because I always felt that when I took somebody out to teach them to drive, I wanted to give back my knowledge, but all I was doing was teaching them to get past the test. Once they got past the test, now, at least here in Canada, and I know it is different down in the United States for those who are listening down there, we can go and strap on 2 trailers and be 140,000 pounds. Well, where's do we have the skill to do such a thing? No, I mean, I didn't when I first started. It's driving is a skill that is learned over time, and it's an evolution. And to this day, I still learn every time I'm driving.
Yeah, if you mess up, you mess up, and you go, how did that happen? You think about it. Well, this is how it happened. I didn't look twice, and there were 2 black cars. I didn't see the second one because I assumed. And that's where that Smith method, where you're constantly looking, comes in so handy.
Mm.
You should always know what's in your mirrors. Doesn't matter if there's nobody else on the highway. Keep looking in your mirrors because somebody is going to show up eventually.
I'll give you this one. So on May 25th, here I am. I get out. I fly from Calgary to Toronto. 10 o'clock at night, I rent my car. Now I have to go up to Bracebridge, so up into Cottage Country.
Right.
My biggest concern is when I got to King City was, do I get a coffee? Because I know I have to sleep tonight. I got a meeting in the morning. Am I going to jazz myself? I'm getting a coffee. So, you can't get the trucker out of me, right? I needed a coffee. So I stopped. I got my, I'm sorry, I've gravitated to lattes. So I got my latte at I can take the razzing for whoever wants to throw that in online. But I got my latte and I got going, and I'm watching traffic as I'm going up the road. And in Ontario, it's notorious 10 to 15 over the speed limit. You're probably the slowest on the road, right? And this is, again, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. And there's a 90-kilometer zone or 55-mile-an-hour zone as you get up towards outside of barriers. You're getting up towards the Cottage Country. So I set my vehicle roughly around 65 miles an hour, 105 kilometers an hour, somewhere in there. And I put it on cruise, and I got it. And I'm more focused on animals at this point because it's a good animal, heavily animally populated and everything. So I'm focused on animals because I no longer have a semi to take that animal out. I'm just in my little Ford. What did I have? A Ford Bronco Sport.
Right.
And seriously, Chuck, out of nowhere, I don't remember much after this. All I know is I had to pull the vehicle out of a skid because, man, did I get hit. I seen nobody coming up behind me. And I scan my surroundings often, right? Just force of habit. Mirrors are my best friend. I love them. I use them. And yes, I'll use a backup camera, but I still use my mirrors. It's ingrained in me, and that's it. So I didn't see a car coming. And so once I got my vehicle out of the skid and pulled over to the side of the road, I got out of the vehicle. There was nothing around, nothing at all. I couldn't see anything around me. I couldn't smell any cars. Like you would figure
Right.
you'd smell fluids, something of that nature. I called 911 because the back of my car's written off. I know I've been hit. This is, perfectly clear. I got a good clipping. And you think if I'm doing that speed, what the other person was doing, right? So happens that they picked him up, I can't translate this one. Under a kilometer behind me, probably about 900 meters, somewhere in there. But it was just over a little null where I couldn't see the car. He was still in the live lane, but he was hammered, drunk, just absolutely hammered. Well, he had already hit something before me and took out his headlights, so I didn't see him coming, right? So
he's driving down the highway with no headlights.
well, dude, I couldn't see anyways. So, yeah, so he took me out and, so you're right. You don't know what's going to be around. And I did not get off the airplane expecting that some guy drunk was going to bite me that night, but he bit hard. So, you get these things. You have to, it's been, as a professional driver, I've driven, the last time I got in a collision was about 1988. And it was my fault as a kid running around being a, complete ass. And, all my professional driving career, no tickets or accidents. So that became a pride for me to not have that. And now I understand it's not a fault accident and there was nothing I could do to avoid it because I didn't see him.
Right.
But it still bothers me because as a defensive driver, how could I have avoided that? Right. And I think it's going to bug me forever because it's one of those things. I'm glad he hit me and not somebody else because he's, arrested and he'll be dealt with that way. And there's a drunk or an impaired off the road. And, I withstood the collision, I think, a little bit better than maybe the average person might have. But I'm thankful that it was me and he didn't kill a family.
Yeah, that's what happens. On another topic, we have these brake check weeks, okay? And I think we all know that what happens during brake week, a lot of people shut down their trucks and go fishing or work on the truck, do that repair work, and they don't want to get bothered. I think these brake check weeks are nonsense. I think they have to be shut down immediately. And I think that every day needs to be safety week. What's your opinion on?
Brakes are my nemesis. So this comes from me being a mountain guy. So I started my career in the mountains, which, on the way out from Calgary to Vancouver, there's a number of brake checks. And then on the way back, there's a number of brake checks. And, when you would go out there, I refused to crawl underneath my truck at a brake check. And I remember having a discussion with a DOT fellow there one day, and he asked me why I wouldn't get underneath the truck. And I said, well, I do it before I get there. I do it in Calgary at my yard before I leave. One, I have a lot of distance before that brake check, so I'm going to make sure that they're good before then. And number two, when I get there, I'm sorry, but nobody respects this place. And it's just there's more urine than there is asphalt. So I am not lying on that. But it was true because that's what the people used it for. So my thing is what I tell new drivers and what I try to incorporate into companies, guys, please make sure that you understand how to teach them to do air brake pre-trips. Okay. And an air brake pre-trip should at the very least, look in the back of your driver's handbook, look it up online. It's an air brake pre-trip isn't going to cost a guy a lot of time. It's not going to cost him all this time sitting under the trailer. They'll teach them how to set up a manual brake by using the foot pedal. You'll know whether you have air leaks. You want to know if your tractor protection valve is working properly.
Right.
These are things that you want to, because again, you don't know when a drunk guy's going to hit you on the highway. You don't know when something is going to happen out in the highway where you need those systems to fall into place. You want to make sure that you don't know if you're going to strike something on the road that's going to take out a primary or a secondary tank.
Yeah.
Right. And how you're going to get yourself down to where you need to go. And that could happen on a hill. Right.
Yeah.
You don't want to be the one that's going to have brake fade coming down a hill because you decided to take it too fast. And the rule of thumb, you'll only go down a hill once the wrong way. You can go down it a million times the right way, but you'll only go down it once the wrong way. It's like jumping out of an airplane without a parachute. You can do it. Landing's going to hurt, but you can do it. And as a driver, I can remember distinctly pulling into a truck stop and going to sleep. And this was with another person from the same company. When I got up the next morning, I got out and popped my hood open. And, it was a nice spring day. I popped my hood open and I started going through the truck. And he looked at me, he goes, "Do you do that every single day?" And I said, "Yes." And he goes, "My God, man, but you own the truck. Why do you do this?" And I said, "What about the 16 or 1700 kilometers I just put on behind?" I said, "How do I know something didn't happen?"
Especially if you own the truck, because you're the guy paying for the repair.
Well, he figured that I knew the truck, that I understood it and everything. And it's true. I mean, you do know if the personality of the truck starts to change as you're driving it, that something could be going wrong. But, the thing is I don't know that a mechanical part of my vehicle is starting to fail, right? And the way I can do it best is, and what I would do at the brake checks is I would simply do my air brake pre-trip, basically the in-cab, the walk around, but yes, I always made sure that my, push rod travel was where it was supposed to be before I left.
Right.
And again, then I became an air brake instructor in Alberta. And, it's frustrating to see how many people, and this happened actually once, Chuck, when you and I were working together, where we had it wasn't one of your trucks, but it was a truck that the shop was helping out because his brakes froze up. And, coming from Alberta, where it gets very cold, Rico, like it gets stunningly Arctic cold here, but it doesn't get that same kind of cold in Ontario. It's a different kind of cold, right? Because of the humidity that happens. We're a very dry cold, and it will get down to, well, at minus 40, we all meet together, Fahrenheit and Celsius. So we see that here, like minus 30s, minus 40s. It's not uncommon. So you do have a lot of brake problems out here in the wintertime because of drivers that don't understand them, or they don't drain their air tanks.
Right.
And that one that came in Ontario when we were there, and he was having all these brake problems and everything, it was because when they opened up his wet tank, you could have filled a cup. Like, we're sitting there going, "Oh my good Lord, like, how do you," I mean, it's like, I didn't know that you could drain the tanks, and he had never drained them in the 5 years he owned the truck. Right. Well, yeah. So he had, well, and your air gauge is just showing you what is capacity in the tank. So if there's fluid in there, it's going to show the fluid just like it's air.
Yeah.
And if there's air, so if you've got 50% fluid, you only have enough space to put 50% air. So you don't have 120 pounds worth of air pressure sitting in that tank. You'll only have half of that. So you only have half your braking capacity. And so, people not understanding the air brake system, I wish that we would do a better job. But as far as I understand, and I'm not an air brake instructor anymore, I don't do that. But as far as I understand, and I can't confirm that, I'd have to look into it, I think we've even dumbed that down a little bit. So to make it quicker, and very frustrating, right? Because I mean, nobody's running disc. Well, not a lot of vehicles are running disc brakes yet. So
no, not yet. Well, they are on the power unit, but certainly not on the trailer. I'm seeing more and more, especially the Daimler products with disc brakes. A lot of them have it. I've got a question. I'd love an answer. I grew up. We had the drain cock on all the tanks.
Yeah.
And then some genius decided to put a piece of wire instead. Now, one of the old trucks I bought, it's one of my newer old trucks. It's a 67, or 76. It had the wire, and I felt I couldn't empty the tanks properly holding that wire. So I put a drain cock valve. What was the sense of putting these wires on as compared to the manual drain cock?
So that if the tanks were in a conspicuous spot of the frame that the driver couldn't honestly get to by hand, if they put the wire there and that little toggle piece, they could pull on the wire and still drain it without going underneath to do it.
Yeah, they don't want to get themselves dirty.
Yeah, it was. We'll say that that's the reason, but it was just so that people wouldn't get underneath, right? And because drivers weren't doing it. So, and I had a few, vehicles over my day that were like that. So I would just simply, sometimes I'd idle them up and just let the tanks go and just let the air keep forcing through, especially the wet tank. But at the end of the night, regardless, every single truck I drove at the end of the shift, if my truck was parked for the night, the tanks were drained.
Smart.
Summer, winter. It was just a routine that I got into. And, but I've personally seen what happens at the end of a mountainside when somebody doesn't have brakes. I've seen it not as often as you would think running the mountains for as long as I did, but I think maybe once or twice I've seen that. But I did witness one guy passing me while the brakes were going up in flames too, and coming down Selmo Creston. And listening to him on the radio was a pretty hard go climbing the hill because you're not helping him, right? You're just gonna.
You're pretty helpless in that situation.
You must see some of that, with the insurance side of things, where there's been a wreck and you've seen what happens when somebody doesn't know about brakes or doesn't check them.
Specifically, there's nothing that comes to mind that I've seen in that way. More of that for me comes from from my time out in the road. But I haven't seen anything, not to say it's not there. I'm sure that we've got collisions of all shapes and sizes and malfunctions and or driver error and stuff like that. It hasn't just come across my plate at this point in time. It's more, the stuff I see is probably more driver based, and I hate to say it, it's probably more distraction is what I see.
Is it distraction or is it inexperience? Because you know what, there's an awful lot of, and that's a complaint I think that Canadians have with a lot of inexperienced drivers getting behind the wheel of tractor trailers that haven't training, or they're trained. A big one, Rico, for your information, is you train a driver with these learn quick driver schools in Ontario, and then you send them out in the mountains between Alberta and BC. The poor fella, he's not even from Canada. He comes from Southeast Asia. He's never seen snow till he got here because there's not a lot of snow in Southeast Asia. Never drove a truck back there, certainly not an articulated truck. He may have very well. Most of these guys are farm boys, so they've driven straight trucks and farm tractors probably from the time they could walk. So that's why they gravitate towards trucking. But they don't have the winter experience, and they put them in the mountains right away on first trip out.
You do see a lot of that, and oddly enough, it was on a TV show, and I'm sure you guys have seen the TV shows that happen out there in the mountains, where they had a tow truck operator pull up beside the guy, and he got out, and it was a good 6 inches of snow sitting on the side of the mountain, and you don't honestly know sometimes if you're coming out of Vancouver and you're going to hit the Coquihalla and you're going up the Smasher, that you start at sea level. And then you work your way up that mountain, and it's very quick. But you can start with rain, and you think, oh, tonight's going to be a breeze, But then by the time you get to the brake check, you're in a full blown winter fallout, like it's Armageddon, and you're putting chains on, and guys were getting out of their trucks, in their sandals, because they didn't know, like they didn't know. And I know that, social media or the industry picks on people in certain ways, but I always look at it as common sense isn't there until it's taught. And that's not an ignorant statement. It's just saying, when your kids were growing up, you taught them not to touch the burner of the stove.
Right.
You taught them not to walk near the stairs to fall down them, right? So you give them, we also teach them to be fearful of spiders and strangers and all those things. But you teach them common sense. It's not there until it's taught. So if somebody's never been here and they're going out onto a route like that, if somebody hasn't taken the time to sit down and explain to them that this is a possibility, this could happen, this is, and as an instructor, we didn't train that way. We didn't give, or you didn't have time to give the lessons on, hey guys, let's put tire chains on now, so that we can, do this. And I want to see you, number one, I want to see you screw it up, because you're going to learn from failure. But if you learn from failure in the yard, and failure is not a bad word, it's only bad when it comes and bites you in the ass when you're out on the road. So right. If we learn from that failure now, and then, oh geez, the cam needs to be on this side, we need to adjust it this way, and the chains need to be this tight. And, that's going to be my safest route when it comes to getting up a mountainside or going down it, one of the two. We don't do that, right? We don't give them, or any of them. There was a driver that used to work with Chuck, and he was from Hong Kong, and funniest fellow. I quite liked him, but his English was very hard.
It was non-existent. Let's be honest. He couldn't speak a word of English.
He tried. He was great at texting. He was fantastic at texting, right? Or if we were doing in-cab communications, he was fantastic. And dispatch was going to send him through Colorado. And I think he was going to end up somewhere in California in the interim. But anyways, he was going to end up with some mountains, right? And it was coming that time of year. So I took him outside, and this was after hours. And him and I sat for the longest time. And again, because you're right, the communication was hand signals and nodding. Do you get it? And stuff like that. And basically, by the time I was done, he could chain up no problem. I felt like he was comfortable with it and everything. And next thing you know, I'm sitting at my desk, and he comes back, and his trip was good. Dispatch didn't have any problems with him. And I get a big bottle of scotch, and he gives it to me with a handwritten note that said, "Thank you. I had to do it 3 times, and I did it right every time." Right.
Wow.
And but I gave him the confidence to do it. But nobody else would have taught him. Right. And, us who have been out there for years, we've got millions of dollars of knowledge and wealth to give for things like that. And that's really why I took the job I did, was to give back that knowledge. Right. And
certainly have.
I just want them to know it. I mean, we're a team, or I'd like it to be a team, to where we give that knowledge back to the guys. And I don't care where they come from. I don't care what country they're from. If there's a fellow trucker, but he's from America and he's sitting out there, I'm going to help him. Right. And, because at the end, we all have families to go home to, but we all have families out on the road that we want to come back to us.
Right.
Yeah. That's so true. And that's why we have to, that's why we need to, everything's got to be safe all the time. You keep those families safe. And
it's something that just kind of pricked my consciousness a little bit. We're coming up on the time of, we're Labor Day just passed, so we're going into fall, we're coming into winter. Maybe what are some different things, besides actually, like say, learning how to chain up is one thing, and it's best to try to learn how to chain up now while the weather is still somewhat mild. But what are some other things, that you would throw out there with us, as far as what are some good things that might be time to maybe brush up on from a safety perspective going into these months that are coming up that's going to may present us with more and more inclement weather?
This is an excellent question, and I love it because of the fact that we change seasonally, right? So we change with the seasons, but we don't adapt to the season, right? So it's what I always try to stress is the stuff that you already know. So think of it this: how many times, and I don't know if anybody wants to admit to this, but and for anybody listening, you can figure it out. How many times have you walked up to, say, like a fridge, opened the door, looked inside, and you're looking for ketchup or a condiment of some sort, and it's like, well, I can't see it, and yet your wife will come up behind you, reach around, grab it, and give it to you by hand, and say, "Idiot, there it is." It's an actual true mental blindness, right? You've pulled up a blank slide, and what your eyes see and what your brain sees
Yeah.
is a blank slide. Okay, so you didn't physically see that ketchup bottle there.
Right.
So it's not, and as drivers, we can become very complacent with things. And the best one I like to use is, let's look at frost, right? We're going to get into the temperatures now where you're going to come in. It could be maybe a little bit of a foggy night. You're going to get that frost on the ground or whatever. But what we see as drivers is bare road, right? We don't see the frost that's, Jack Frost nips at you quickly, right? We don't see things like that. We don't see the fact that our coefficient friction between the rubber of the tire and that road could be reduced on us by 10%, maybe 20%. And when you're getting into a corner really hard, and that is the difference between you and a slide, or, causing a trailer to jackknife because it's pushing you, right? Those kinds of things. So I like to call it, it's keeping you mentally fit. It's keeping you mentally aware, right? So give the training on the stuff that the drivers already know. And why I say that is because what you're doing is, if you already, if you have that blank slide sitting back there, you've gone back into the Rolodex and you've replaced that slide, right? The driver may sit there and go, "Oh, good Lord, we've done this a million times. I get it." Yeah, but we just replaced your slide and you didn't know it, right? So when you're out on the road and you're going to do something, that blank slide pops back into place. So you're preparing them mentally, not necessarily giving them like a physical, you can do that with the chaining up. It's always great to do, especially if somebody's never done it.
Right.
But when you've got a veteran that's out there, we come with a lot of bad habits. And that bad habit is, not adapting, right? And that's all there is to it. So I like to keep guys mentally fit for when they're going out, and it's just giving them the same, "Hey guys, we're coming into fall and winter." It's, how many times do we look what happens after Labor Day? School goes back in. What do we do? What do we see out there? We see all the big programs. Hey, drivers, schools are back in. Watch for kids, right? But we all know school's back in. So shouldn't we be watching for kids anyways? No, it's a great reminder to bring up that, that mental, displacement and put it back into place.
Yeah, it is. It's true, and like on 407 highway, they have these reminders all the time. Don't drink and drive. Don't smoke pot and drive. Don't speed limits are in effect. Things like that.
Yeah.
What does it stop somebody? Well, maybe somebody that was going to go and go to their buddy's house and have a few won't. Maybe somebody that's speeding will look down at their speedometer and say, "You know what? I'm going a little fast. I better cut it down." I got ticked off. I was using 407 last week. I was on my way back from the truck show, and I was amazed. Now, I wasn't about to drive a truck much more than the speed limit, although I was bobtailing and it was an antique truck. And I saw a lot of cars doing double the speed limit, 200 kilometers an hour, lots of them. What did the signs say? "We are wishing the monarch butterflies a safe trip home."
I was in Ontario, seeing that too. Yeah.
I thought, first of all, I didn't know butterflies could read. And on number two, I didn't know they took the toll road. Like, what is this? They
Yeah.
should be warning people about speeding. What the hell is going on here?
I had to giggle at that, and it's it's hard to say how much of that. I haven't looked to see if there's any data on that personally, on how much the road signs honestly make effect. But I suppose if it works for one, that's one that it didn't maybe not have worked for before. But yeah, I can't stress enough like how much it can play that you bring up. Uh, just the basics, right? Because we are still basic people and we're still the same humans that started driving, right?
Yeah.
The technology of the trucks has changed. There's no doubt about that. And we have to adapt to the technology in the trucks now. But our brains are still the same. We're still human and we're going to have human errors, right? So go to the human side of it, learn and keep yourself mentally fit for the next realm of what things are what's going to come.
Yes, absolutely. I'm looking at the time. We don't want to belabor the point, and we thank you, Andrew, for taking the time out to come and join us. But where can people, if you don't mind, where can people find you, or if they want to ask you a more in-depth question or whatever, if you're open to that, how can people find you and get a hold of you?
If they want to catch me on email, it's astacey410@outlook.com. You can email me there. I'm on every social media site from now you're going to ask me what I am. Just look for the big mustache because I have no idea because I'm not social media savvy, but I'm on LinkedIn. I am on Instagram and Facebook. So I try to stay up on the trucking side of things, and I chuck a few funny things here and there every once in a while just to keep us young. But yeah, you can find me that way, or you can reach out to me via email, and I'd be happy to answer anybody's question when it comes to something that's either risk related or, I do work for an insurance company, but I'm not an insurance person. I don't answer insurance questions, but I do answer risk. Yeah, I'd help anybody out with risk.
Thank you.
All right, Andrew, well, we definitely appreciate you for taking the time out, being so generous with your time to come on and join us this evening.
Thank you for inviting me again.
Absolutely.
I appreciate
Chuck
it.
Snow, how can the people find you, my friend?
Well, if anybody needs me, please send me an email, chucksnow280@outlook.com. Put your phone number on the email. I will help you any way I can. I'm always happy to help our listeners with anything. And with that, Rico, I'll let you back her in a hole for another week.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, like we said at the top of the show, if you would, please do us a huge favor. Subscribe to the show. It doesn't cost you a dime. It's free. It just helps us out tremendously to get the video and the information out to a bigger and broader audience. And if you know anyone that could have benefited from anything that we talked about today, whether you found it informative or entertaining, if you would, share, tell a friend to tell a friend about the show, share the show. And like I say, it definitely helps us out. We greatly appreciate all the help we can get on that front. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we want you guys out there that are on the highways and byways to stay safe, stay healthy, keep it in between the mustard and the mayonnaise, and we'll talk at the same time, same place next week, God willing. God bless you and good night.
God bless. Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you, guys.
Flip flop. Good night.
Good night.